Bueno, muchas gracias por invitarme. Thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate being able to tune in here on behalf of the LatinX AI organization and to be invited by the Jalisco AI Forum to present today and to talk about our work. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about accelerating the global LatinX AI ecosystem. This is, of course, a global community of researchers, engineers, and entrepreneurs who are working in artificial intelligence and who identify as Latinx or Latin American. Today we will be giving a brief overview of our organization and programs, specifically focused on creating opportunities for innovation, collaboration, and career advancement for our members worldwide. As some background, if you're not familiar with our organization, LatinX AI is fiscally supported by the LXAI Institute. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're based in California in the USA, and we have a mission to drive artificial intelligence for social impact initiatives. We have been operating since 2016, and our programs benefit underrepresented individuals in tech and those who fear experiencing job loss due to automation. We work with large companies, startups, governments, and other NGOs or nonprofit organizations globally in order to achieve our programs and goals. I already had a really nice introduction, so thank you for that. But if we're meeting for the first time, of course, I am Laura Montoya. Very nice to meet you, one of the founders for LXAI and the LatinX AI programs. As was mentioned, I also lead the Excel Impact Company and organizations. My academic background is in biology and physical science, but since transitioning into the artificial intelligence space, my recent research focuses on the areas of ethical AI development and applied AI engineering for impact. I also mentor startups in the deep tech and AI areas. A brief overview of some of our research publications that have come out of LXAI as well as the LatinX AI organization through collaborations includes this government AI readiness meta-analysis for Latin America and the Caribbean. In this research, we discuss the factors that may impact AI preparedness for Latin American and Caribbean countries. So through this work, we evaluated a ranking that was originally done by the IDRC and Oxford Insights, which focused on the development of AI in governance, infrastructure, increasing technology skills, and public services. We compared their ranking against factors that they failed to consider for each country, including its economic potential, for things like unemployment rate, the GDP, PPP, the cost to hire an AI researcher and to employ them full-time, and of course, countrywide educational levels. We also discussed the current political issues for each country during that time, which was in 2019, that may of course affect the development and adaptation of artificial intelligence as well. Our next work is on contextualizing artificial intelligent morality. And in this work through LXAI, we explored a literature review on how ethical AI frameworks are developed and how they are implemented in practice, taking into account, of course, philosophy, technical development, and political drivers for ethical AI. So these perspectives were identified as being either bottom-up, top-down, or hybrid approaches. And they were, of course, including real-world case studies so that we can really show the impact of a global perspective and the debate over the value alignment issues for theoretical future development and thought experiments to improve AI development over time for all members of society. Most recently, we have been working on a book chapter contribution on mitigating bias in machine learning. Our specific chapter is called Towards Rectification of Machine Learning Bias in Healthcare Diagnostics. And in this text, we show how artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms can impart bias based on historical context of healthcare treatment, and we propose methods for combating this bias. So the types of bias that we cover in this particular chapter include, for example, cognitive bias, evaluation bias, sampling bias, underestimation bias, and other statistical biases in general. And some of the mitigation techniques that we explain and explore include pre-processing techniques, such as including data selection and learning, in-processing techniques, such as adversarial debiasing, data regularization, and applying fairness constraints, and then some post-processing methods as well, like modifying decision thresholds, relabeling prior to retraining, and adjusting weights to account for outliers in different scenarios. And we include a case study on detecting skin cancer across diverse ethnic groups, which features the diverse dermatology images dataset that was developed by Stanford. This particular chapter and book are going to, it's currently set to be published in Q4 of 2023, so we're excited to share that with you as well. And that'll be published by the McGraw-Hill Publishing Company here in the US. So why have I chosen to focus on the Hispanic population and the development of the LatinX and AI programs? Aside from being a Colombian American myself, I'm actually first generation here in the US. I was born in California, but my family did immigrate from Colombia. So the important factors that I've considered is that the US Hispanic population accounts for about 19% of all Americans, and that makes it the nation's second largest racial or ethnic group in the US behind white Americans. US-born Latinos like me comprise of a majority, so it is traditionally thought that the Latino population in the US is actually primarily immigrants. That is actually proven to be wrong at this point. And the Hispanic community makes over about 17% of the overall US workforce. But within that 17%, we only represent 8% of science, technology, engineering, and math fields and jobs, which is kind of scary if you ask me. And as a country, the US needs to do better to help Latinx and Latin American identified people get into tech, and more specifically to be successful in AI due to the great implications that it could have on our future. As shown by this Pew Research study, there's a lot of sentiment in the Hispanic population that includes specifically that representation is a key barrier to attracting more students and professionals to work in this space. And so that's part of what our organization does as well, is to help provide that representation to ensure that people recognize that we're here too and doing this work and capable. And so students will come up in the future knowing that there is a place for them within this field. So along the lines of diversity in AI, currently in the US, there has been a rise in the share of Hispanic students attending and graduating from college, which is really great. But the percentage of Hispanics graduating with a computer science bachelor's or graduate degree is very low. As you can see here, for computer science bachelor's graduates, it's only about 10%. If you get to master's, that drops down to 7%. Once you look at PhD graduates, the Hispanic population drops down to about 5%. And then for computer science resident faculty members, so professors, associate professors, and so on, that drops down to 2 to 3% in universities. So again, there's a gap of representation, not only among the student population, but also among those teaching others and becoming mentors within the field. And in the US, the Latinx community is really concerned about the impact of technology. So with a 54% of Latinx employees, they're worried about automation and other innovation taking their jobs away, compared to 44% concern among non-Hispanic white employees. So there's a bigger concern there among the Hispanic population. That's not surprising, because the 20 most popular occupations among Latinos in the US are in sectors like agriculture, construction, hospitality, and housing. So these jobs, of course, as you know, generally speaking, are mostly manual labor. They're labor intensive and repetitive, and those are the kind of jobs that can be replaced by technology. So that's why most of people who identify as Latin American, like myself in the US, have these concerns. So what about in Latin American countries? Well, what I love about working with LatinX and AI as an organization and our members globally is that we have found that Latin Americans are incredibly resilient. And also Latin American universities focus on STEM education with very high graduation rates. The education index within Latin American countries is incredibly high. And alongside that, entrepreneurship is in the culture and history of the region. So Latinos are considered also early technology adopters and a mobile-first audience. So not only are Latin Americans learning essentially how to do this work and how to train others to do this work, but also, we're one of the first people to actually adopt the technology and to use it. And there are, of course, many countries with really high potential in AI already, including Mexico, of course, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, Uruguay, Costa Rica, and Panama that are thriving in this space, which is very, very exciting. So what is keeping Latin America back in the global AI race? Like, what are the barriers? Well, when we surveyed our members, we hear the most from the researchers, engineers, and entrepreneurs in the space that they're lacking access. And when they say they're lacking access, they mean to these specific items, right? Lacking access to capital, lacking access to mentors, to data, and to computational power. And so a lot of this is driven due to political issues within each country, and of course, increasing inflation that is happening in a lot of Latin American countries as well. On top of that, there are a lot of informal sectors that drive the economy in Latin American countries. So those industries, of course, include things around food, around water cleaning and production, the development and mining of lithium, and mining of oil and gas. But what we have found as an organization, and what we really try to show through our programming as well, is that AI in Latin America should be focused more on environmental issues like climate change and social issues, considering such a large percentage of the world's natural rainforests and other resources exist in Latin America. This opportunity really should be harnessed through artificial intelligence technology. So what are some action steps that we can take as not only a community that identifies Latinx, but really as a whole, right? Here are a few of the ways that we can create a STEM pipeline for all members of the Hispanic and Latinx community. Of course, that begins with education programs, right? Companies need to support the introduction of STEM programs beginning in elementary school, and particularly in underserved communities. And from within your own country as well, there are, of course, many underserved communities that need that additional outreach. By introducing STEM skills and digital literacy at an early age, students can be exposed to a world of opportunity. And also you can create volunteer programs that work with these types of organizations to do that, right? To have these educational programs from a very young age. There's also mentorship programs. So STEM skills aren't just enough, right? We need to guide and mentor students from elementary school through college and show them the possibilities that exist, right? Providing resources, guidance, support, and representation, right? To bring connections and to truly influence them for the type of career opportunities that are available in this world of AI. Of course, there are campus recruiting programs, right? Organizations need structured campus recruiting efforts that target colleges and universities with strong Hispanic populations in the US, and of course, universities in Latin America. And businesses should partner with alliance programs geared towards minority representation in STEM. And we should bring these students into the fold with internships, retention programs, and additional networking and mentorship opportunities. And then from there, after someone goes to college, career services is really key. So hosting STEM career job fairs in Hispanic and Latino communities, creating skilling and reskilling programs that offer scholarships for tech, boot camps, and certifications, some of these non-traditional ways in which people can also become incorporated without necessarily going back for a graduate degree in school. These should be inclusive of computers, software, and Wi-Fi, because oftentimes a lot of underserved communities are lacking access to those necessary tools to complete these programs. And then in the corporate world and in corporate communities, once organizations have educated, mentored, and brought people on board, we really need to ensure that we have a safe place to land, right? To create resource groups within companies in the corporate world where people can find community and mentors and a circle of support to share their issues and find that peer companionship. So with that, I'll now go into some of the programming that we offer as an organization and what we do essentially to provide opportunities and to mentor our network. So some of what I will cover include our research workshops, our membership forum, our mentorship program, the Journal of Latinx and AI Research, our supercomputer network, and the Center for Standards in Ethics and Artificial Intelligence. So you've gotten already a little background about our organization, but really you need to know what is key is that we really try to bridge communities, right? We try to work with people in all areas of AI, including government officials, including universities, including the engineers and researchers independently doing the work to develop artificial intelligence. And we really try to help them work together to understand what are the barriers and how can we support each other in an ecosystem. And so we do this by operating in many different ways. Of course, as a nonprofit organization, we are primarily volunteer-led. So we do also rely a lot on our community and our membership base to ensure the successful completion of our programs, which, I am so grateful for the community for taking part in this. And I hope that you can also join us in these efforts. We have supporting engineering and research initiatives. So we try to provide things like our research workshops that really boost people up and provide that representation. We have our mentorship platform, as was mentioned, and we really try to nurture this continuing relationship between entities. We also have a job openings network so that any of our corporate partners that have opportunities available can connect directly with those that are seeking career opportunities in the field. And as was mentioned, we also try to help with issues around bias awareness or risks and concerns that people have around losing their jobs due to AI technology. A little bit of the background timeline of our organization, specifically the LatinX and AI programs started back in 2018, as I mentioned, as part of the LXAI Institute, and we have been developing and shaping the organization and our programs every year based on feedback from our community. So latest in 2023, these new initiatives include, for example, a new forum, essentially an online town hall, a place for people to connect and to learn about each other and to share their work. We are now driving community engagement, and also we have a focus on supporting startups in a way that we never have before. So to begin with our research workshops, these workshops take place several times throughout the year, and it is done in partnership and collaboration with some major conferences that essentially are the table at which people share their research, drive innovation, have amazing opportunities in AI, right? If you really want a global perspective on artificial intelligence and you want to know what's happening before anyone else does, that's what happens at these conferences. And so for us, we know that it's very important to have the Latin American representation there above anywhere else. So these research workshops are hosted each year at these conferences, including some of those that I will talk about in a second, the Neural Information Processing Systems Conference, but also the International Conference on Machine Learning, the Computer Vision and Natural Language Processing conferences. But for us, what we try to do to support our members getting there is we actually provide grants to support them in attendance. So for things like travel, accommodation, registration to attend, visa fees, whatever it is that they might need in order to get them there to participate. So to date, we have actually awarded over 1,000 conference travel and registration grants to our community. And this was also during the pandemic as well. When our members could only attend online, we still wanted to support in any way that we can, and we're really proud to be able to do that. To connect online, aside from our conferences, we of course also have our online forum, as I mentioned. And so this forum was launched as a new platform to better facilitate communication and resource sharing between our members. So we would really also love and invite you to join this forum. It is free to sign up, whether you identify as Latin American or Latinx, or as an ally. You are welcome to join and then share opportunities for the community, find collaboration for research, and then also post jobs or tutorials, whatever it is that you want to contribute. As I mentioned, we have our mentorship program, and really the idea behind this is to match early career Latinx and AI researchers with expert mentors. As was mentioned, that representation is a real issue. And while most Latin American countries rate very, very highly on the education index, many Latin American governments have not invested enough in technological research and development. So this creates a brain drain phenomena where researchers and engineers oftentimes leave their home countries to pursue opportunities abroad. And then there are not enough mentors left behind to help those that are coming into the fold. So we really want to try to solve that problem through our mentorship program. And we've found some of the barriers for LXAI mentees to be things like they're unaware of their options getting into artificial intelligence, as this seems to be a very novel space, especially for Latin American students. They're missing that local expertise limitation, right, because those that are more experienced are leaving. They're missing encouragement gaps. If no one in their family has essentially achieved a career in this space, they may not have that representation locally, and there may not be anyone to encourage them to pursue this career. Of course, there are language differences if they're looking for mentors from abroad, financial hurdles, as we've mentioned, and then, of course, that lacking of role models. So the ways in which we help through this program is to match people based on specialization, career level, time zone, and language to ensure that they can find all the needs that they have when they're meeting with their mentor. Through their mentorship, they're offered research guidance, if that's particularly what they're interested in, also accountability. Some of the mentors also offer immigration application advising. So if the mentee is applying for a PhD program or applying for a new job, this is another great way to get feedback, to kind of test the waters and see, am I doing this correctly? Would someone be able to advise me on how to improve my application? And then we try to create a platform to connect and amplify their work as well. And that is done through our research workshops, of course, and through our online system. So as an organization, we have developed this mentor matching algorithm to help to match those individuals through a more automated system. We ask questions like, what areas of specialization are you interested in, whether that's something like computer vision or natural language processing or reinforcement learning. And then, of course, system is built in so that it will handle automatic matching through each vertical that we identify in the application for both the mentees and the mentors. So we can find the highest rated and matched mentor and mentee pairs to then put together and come together for a 3-month mentorship period. And so what happens during this mentorship program is that it is primarily virtual mentoring, right? Since we have people located all over the world, the mentees and mentors select their specializations. They're matched for these meetings. They take place over something like a Zoom session like this. And of course, the mentors are asked to give advice to the mentees on whatever issues it is that they really need help with. The mentees are then asked to incorporate that feedback and essentially improve their work, improve their applications, and improve their presentations if they plan on presenting at one of our workshops. And then, of course, through our LXAI platforms, including the conferences, including our Journal of Latinx and AI Research, including our forum, we, of course, try to help with advancement and achievement through amplification of their individual work that they improve through our program. So these are just some testimonials from mentees that have taken part in our program with our organization. This is Stephanie. She was actually a high school student when she participated, which is one of the younger people that we would usually allow to participate. And so she said that she learned a lot about an introduction to machine learning and AI. And enjoyed having discussions with her mentor. So she really felt like she could see herself doing this type of work in the future, which is great. Also, Gabriel Francisco Lemos here was a graduate student in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And he said that the mentor meetings were really crucial for planning the next steps towards his PhD project, and it was very meaningful. And Nicolas Araque here, who's actually a professor of engineering in Venezuela, he said that the mentorship programs were a game changer for him in his career. And he went from not knowing much about writing and publishing research to actually writing a full paper. So he was very grateful for this opportunity and experience as well. So those are just some of the examples of people that have gone through our programming and essentially have gained a benefit from working with us in our mentorship program. And again, we can help on many different ways depending on the needs of the individual mentee. And now for our Journal of Latinx and AI Research and Proceedings. Originally, we developed an archive of all of the work that was presented at our workshops, but we found that this may be limiting for those who participate with us when instead they could, of course, publish in a journal or publish at a larger conference. We wanted to make sure that anyone who published with us at our workshops received appropriate credit and that they were, of course, able to then be cited appropriately for their research, right? Just like you would if you were to publish in a journal. So we created this Journal of LatinX and AI Research to go along initially with our workshop publications, but now have opened it up to receiving full research papers as well. And this journal is also searchable by topic, author, conference, etc. It is, of course, peer-reviewed, so any work that is published here has been tested for quality, essentially, and has been approved over time. All of the work that's published is open-sourced and has open access copyright, so we don't own any of the research. We're just sharing it, of course, on behalf of those authors. And this is in all areas of artificial intelligence, so the scope is very large. So it includes machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, natural language, robotics, data science, and more. And currently we are archiving these for the DOIs with Crossref. They're just one of the companies or organizations that you can, of course, archive with as a journal. And we are also accepting applications for an editorial board for this journal. So we do have some really great editorial board members currently, but we're always seeking more to improve our processes. Next, I'll talk quickly about our supercomputer network. So this is a fairly new program that we have developed, and we are happy to be working with some organizations there, actually in Jalisco, in order to satisfy and carry out this particular program and mission. So the aim and objective of this program is to strengthen the capacity of the LatinX artificial intelligence ecosystem, including researchers, academics, students, nascent startups, and non-governmental organizations. As was mentioned earlier, one of the big barriers that are experienced by researchers and engineers in this space is, of course, lack of computational power. So the idea behind this particular program is to really help solve that problem. And as you know, or you may know if you're working in this space, the demand for computational power or GPU access has risen incredibly over the last 30 years since the onset of deep learning as a big topic, essentially. So for us, we know that this is definitely an increasing need for Latin American researchers. And Latin American countries have unfortunately lagged behind other developed nations in publishing, right? So AI journal publications, as is seen here, by Latin American and Caribbean countries researchers is very, very low, about 3.57% as compared to others in publications. So we only produce about 2.83% of journal and 1.3% of conference papers. So we know that there is more AI being developed in Latin America, of course, that isn't being published, but part of the reason why those publications aren't happening, unfortunately, is due to that lack of computational power. So some of the program goals for this particular program is, of course, to increase Latin American research opportunities in artificial intelligence by providing those resources to high-powered computing, to increase the representation of researchers and students in the space and community by bringing together these research laboratories and nascent undergrad and graduate programs and students, by building capacity for AI in Latin American countries, and to remove the hardware and financial barriers to producing high-quality research in this space as well. So the initial donation for this particular program was with NVIDIA, and so it is an NVIDIA DGX A100 system. Some of the specs on this has an equivalent of 8 A100 GPUs, about 28 P100s, which is equivalent to about 28 P100s, individual GPUs. These are all independent. They have about 640 gigabytes of memory. And so this particular unit costs around $250,000. So we are really grateful, of course, to have a partner like NVIDIA who was willing to do this donation and to have it actually go to the area of Jalisco for use by Tec de Monterrey, as well as the Jalisco Government Innovation Agency as well. And then finally, what I'll discuss here is the Center for Standards and Ethics in Artificial Intelligence. This is actually collaboration between several universities in the US who are essentially universities who work a lot with Hispanic students and the Hispanic population. And so those include Baylor University, Rutgers University, and the University of Miami. And so we started planning for this particular center several years ago, and essentially submitted to the NSF in order to fund this project to ensure that we could provide support for more students and researchers doing work within this space in ethics and AI. Part of the reason for our organization and for me to be interested in this space as well is because, as I mentioned earlier, there are not many professors, and especially not tenured professors, in computer science in the US. And so trying to satisfy this and essentially increase that representation included developing this center so that we could have more of that representation in the US as well, and to support more members of the community coming into the fold. And then, as I mentioned, for this year, we're also now helping startups as much as possible. So we launched, soft launched this past year, LXAI Ventures, and really what the goal is to build the future of Latinx and AI with venture investing as well. So as you all likely know, Latin America is one of the fastest growing regions for venture capital funding. And there are already many Latin American unicorns out there, which is super exciting. And in fact, about $19.5 billion has been invested into the region, into Latin America. But that's still only about 2% of the total venture capital funding that exists in the world and is invested annually. So there's still great opportunity, essentially, to invest in the region and to increase the amount of innovation that's happening for startups using AI in LATAM and then expanding globally. So these are just some examples. It's great to see that Mexico already has 9 unicorns, which is wonderful, but we have to keep increasing those numbers over time. And so some of the work that we're now doing is launching a fund, a seed venture fund to back AI deep tech companies. This is led by Latinx and Latin American entrepreneurs, so there would need to be at least one Latinx or Latin American identified entrepreneur in the founding team for us to be willing to invest in them. And so this fund is being raised currently, and we are very excited to share it with the Latinx community, as we are going to soon be taking applications, essentially, and submissions for startups to be funded through this program. And this is, of course, supported by our global network, which is rooted in Silicon Valley. So our network already includes investors, governments, corporations, universities, nonprofits, as mentioned. These are just some of the particular brands and companies that we have within our network that we want to support and that we know will also support the startups that come through our programming. So thank you again, of course, to the Jalisco Agency for inviting me to take part and for all the collaborations that you have had with us and our organization. We really appreciate being part of your community and you being part of ours and furthering this work together. And finally, just another last invitation. We would love for you to join us as well, whether that's online through our forum.latinxai.org to look at our research journal, to find innovation there and or to publish with us. Also to join us online on our social media handles, LXAI on Twitter, Latinx and AI on Facebook and LinkedIn. And thank you and welcome so much to our community.